I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and today we're delighted to have with us Don Horwitz. He's the Executive Director of Christians Care International, CCI. It's a global Christian ministry that supports impoverished Jews of the former Soviet Union and helps them by the thousands in transitioning into Israel. And we have a lot to talk with him about. Don, good to see you. How are you today? Do we have him? Can you hear us, Don? Okay, we got a little. Okay, got a little. Can you hear us, Don?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for your patience on that. Good to see you. Thanks for your time, and thanks for the work that you do. Tell us a little bit about CCI.
CCI is an amazing organization. It's Christians Care International. We work. We're all about Isaiah 49:22, answering the calling that God placed upon the nations to bring the Jewish people back home to Israel. We believe that there's two steps to Aliyah, not just the physical transformation to Israel, but also rising the individual up so that they can stand on their own 2 feet. Wow. We work with very difficult cases in the former Soviet Union of Jewish people who have suffered years of repression. And they've been stripped of their heritage from years of Soviet domination. So we have an amazing network of Christians around the world who support us and support our work.
Well, thank you for your work. That's wonderful. So what did you think of finally Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu going through the front door of the White House and meeting with the president yesterday?
Well, for me, it was incredibly encouraging to see that happen. It was a display of unity that I think has been missing for a long time between our two countries. So I was very encouraged to see it. It brought a smile to my face many times during the press conference.
There were some funny one-liners, I have to admit.
Yeah, there were.
One of the big issues on the table there is the possibility of the embassy going from Tel Aviv up to Jerusalem. And I know that that has to be handled very carefully, but how will that impact you, and what do you think it means?
Well, I think that, first of all, for the U.S., it's the only country that our embassy is not in the capital of that country. So to recognize, if we were to move the embassy to Jerusalem, we would finally recognize, our country, the U.S., would finally recognize that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. So it would be a strong statement to the world that we do recognize that.
That's wonderful. All right, so Don, as a Jewish man leading a Christian ministry, this is very interesting. What do you think are some of the most critical issues as these two leaders get together facing Israel and in particular the Jewish people?
Well, you know, I think there's a few things that really jumped out at me during the press conference yesterday. The first thing that really touched me on a deep level was that President Trump talked about shared values, that Israel and the United States have shared values. And for me, what are shared values that our countries were built on? They're Judeo-Christian values. They're the very essence of what our countries are built on. And those Judeo-Christian values stand for mutual respect, shared humanity, building bridges of peace and understanding. So I think it's the essence of what our two nations stand for.
There continues to be a growing anti-Semitism movement out there, even within the United States. Are you sensing it as well?
Yes, we've been seeing it growing. We've seen it growing over the last 4 or 5 years, especially around the world. You know, we're living in a world that's filled with hatred and violence right now. The anti-Semitism is on the rise. Jews are being hunted down, targeted, and killed. But, it's not just Jews anymore that are being hunted and targeted. Christians are also being persecuted as well. So we're living in a dark time right now, which emphasizes the importance of Jews and Christians standing up together as brothers and sisters.
Is there still a fairly large migration of Jews back to Israel?
There is. It isn't like the mass waves of the early 90s. But we are moving hundreds of, if not thousands of people a year still to Israel. Our organization has moved over 87,000 Jews to Israel from the former Soviet Union. So we are seeing still a lot of immigration aliyah to Israel. You're seeing it in France as well, due to the anti-Semitic treatment that the Jews are facing around the world.
Is there, what are some of the challenges or difficulties of that for them to migrate back to Israel?
Well, in the former Soviet Union, the situation is the worst that I've seen in the 17 years that I've been working there. Elderly Jewish people, Holocaust survivors, are starving to death because they don't have the money to buy food. People are dying at rates we've never seen before because they simply can't afford the medical care that they need. The Jewish people are facing a humanitarian crisis at this point. So it's very challenging. You pair that with the war in eastern Ukraine, where people are running for their lives. They're leaving their documents behind. They're leaving the necessities of what it would take to immigrate to Israel. So we have to go and we have to collect these documents for these people, which can be incredibly time-consuming and incredibly challenging, but we're doing it. So because of the economic situations around the world, because of anti-Semitism, the Jewish people are in a humanitarian crisis, and it is making it more difficult for them to make aliyah, to immigrate to Israel.
Immigration being what it is around the world, and if you don't have that documentation, how hard is it for them to actually get into Israel? I mean, what are the vetting processes if they don't have the proper documentation?
Well, you have to have the proper documentation to get in. That's why we have coordinators on the ground throughout the former Soviet Union working on these issues. So we will go to the local municipalities where these people were born, and they'll search the records, they'll search the documents, and we'll replace those documents. But it is necessary to have the documents. Very
good. So if people want to help you and get involved, what should they do?
People can come to our website, christianscare.org. There's a lot of information on the site. We have support of Christians from all over the world working with us. We're answering God's calling to bless the Jewish people.
That is wonderful. One last thing, back to the president and the prime minister getting together. It looks like now the relationship between our two countries couldn't be any stronger, especially compared to what it's been over the last 8 years, and hopefully some fence mending. Do you think that'll take place?
I do think it's going to take place. I think that, again, we've just emerged from a rough period in our relationships together between the U.S. and Israel gets a bad rap around the world. There's a lot of negative press about Israel, and you really have to go to Israel and spend time there to really understand the essence of Israeli society, of how accepting it is and how loving it is. And on the other hand, Israel does have the right to protect its people from radical groups and violence. So I think Israel is really misunderstood. But I think what happened yesterday and what's going to happen moving into the future will really bring our two countries together and really be able to let our countries stand together and be an example to the world of how to spread peace, love, and humanity.
Wow. You're an inspiration, Don. Thank you. And let me encourage our viewers and listeners, check out his website, christianscare.org, christianscare.org. Thanks, my friend. Let's stay in touch, okay?
Thank you. I would love to.
All right. God bless. Have a great day.
God bless you.
All right. We'll be right back.